Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. As promised, the new kind of more regular midweek videos to go through all the stuff that happens during the course of a week and look ahead to the next game so that I don't have to overload the weekend's game analysis-y video, you know what I mean. Just helps to kind of split it across a week so some people can decide what they want to watch. If they want to watch all of it, I don't know why I'm dancing while I'm saying that. My hands are doing that, but they're off screen, so that makes it look like I'm just jiggling and dancing, which is all a bit weird. But yeah, well, there's a fair few bits and little pieces to talk about. And obviously you sent in loads of questions as well, which is always good fun as well, with a variety of Spurs and non-Spurs stuff in there. So let's start off with Tottenham training this week. You might have seen kind of a really lovely moment as some members of Spurs Ability went down there. People with Down syndrome, their families, all the players are wearing colourful mismatched socks. It's all part of bringing awareness to, essentially Down Syndrome Awareness Week. It's the clues in the name there. The awareness is there. And, it meant we had this lovely reunion with young Owen Bright. You might remember him from the fans forum, when Ange wouldn't let the forum finish the Q&A section because there was a young man in the front row just desperate to ask a question, and that was young Owen. And then they had a really nice kind of meet and greet moment afterwards. Well, they topped that. It was even cooler at Hotspur Way. Honestly, I can't do it any justice by talking about it. Please do watch the little video that the Spurs have put out. Essentially, Owen sees Ange coming across the out of the doors onto the pitch at Hotspur Way, and it's almost like a shriek of delight. He's just so happy to see him, and you can see Ange's face, who is normally a very guarded chap with us. He's absolutely delighted to see him as well. And it's a real kind of, just a very sweet moment. And he takes him back to his office and shows him that he's got the photo from their meet and greet sitting on his shelf with all his family photos. It's very, very nice. Lovely. And all of the kind of the youngsters that got involved looked like they had a great time as well. There was a young lad called Albie as well, taking part. It was the men's team, the women's team, all getting involved. And it's just one of those lovely things that I can imagine for Ange and the players, it just kind of gives you an insight into kind of the impact you can have on people's lives. And very cool indeed. And obviously raising awareness for a great cause as well. On the football side of the training bits and pieces that we've seen this week, certainly could see Richarlison involved in some capacity. We'll find out tomorrow from Ange whether that was purely him maybe just working on his own with I don't know whether that's like with sports science staff, whatever, or whether he was actually involved in the group. We shall find that out tomorrow. I certainly know there's been a couple of little knocks and issues from the Villa game, but hopefully, fingers crossed, everyone will be fine, other than the obvious, Mickey van der Ven. But everyone that kind of else that finished that game will be okay. Yeah, just some little bits and pieces that you always get after games. Players that have maybe had injuries in recent months that have kind of still feeling their way back into it all. And we'll find out tomorrow. Hopefully nothing. That's why I'm kind of not naming names, because it's kind of pointless at this stage, because so many players have little problems during a week ahead of a game. It's kind of not even worth mentioning, because by the time the game comes around, mysteriously they're absolutely fine to play. And that is often the player obviously pushing themselves to be able to do that. So we saw Richarlison, no sign, certainly in the photos, of Manor Solomon. I haven't really heard any update on him as of this moment. We'll wait to see what happens with Ange. I mean, it was a couple of weeks ago he said he'd had a little setback, didn't he? And they were kind of slowly bringing him back into it and trying what he could do. So we'll find out tomorrow. If he doesn't mention it, I might ask for a little update. Obviously, Van der Ven's the biggie. I think as part of this, the training session with Owen and the other youngsters, Sky Sports seemed to be down there. They managed to grab a little extra word from him on Wednesday, yesterday. He said, and this is on Van der Ven, we're still getting all of the information in. We don't think it's anything major. We'll probably get some more information at the back end of the week. So he's obviously unlikely for Fulham, but with the international break, hopefully that means he doesn't miss too much more after that. So that's a good sign, and that kind of coincides goes along parallel with what I got from Ange after the game, and also what Ange told Spurs from the medical side of things, that it doesn't seem like it's a bad one. Just looks like something that they're kind of almost precautionary. He sat down and wanted to come off. Like we said at the time, didn't seem anywhere near the kind of pain he was in after the Chelsea game. So, yeah, fingers crossed that that's exactly how it remains, and hopefully we'll probably get a bit more on it tomorrow at the press conference. But time for Radu Dragusin to continue to step up as he did at Villa Park. That was so important, that Villa Park performance, I think, for going into this game at Craven Cottage, which is not going to be easy at all. He's going to have a physical threat. He's going to have very different kind of threats there. Physical threats, pace, a bit of everything from Fulham. So yeah, it was good that he kind of got that under his belt going into it, because obviously Villa offer a lot of that with the power of Watkins, the pace of Bailey, various kind of things he had to deal with. So yeah, good timing in a way. You know what I mean? Not good timing that Van der Ven got injured, but good timing that Dragusin got those important minutes, I think, under his belt. Interestingly, there was a little interview he did with Opta Sport in Australia with Mark Schwarzer. I think it was maybe last week, but I only caught it this week. And it's just got some interesting little bits I'm just going to kind of tell you. He spoke about Postecoglou. This is Van der Ven. He said, "I really like the way he thinks about football. It's really clear. He just wants us to play every time over and over again. He gives us the trust as a team that we can do it. Sometimes you have some trainers who tell you that you have to play, but when you make a mistake, they're going to scream at you. And they're like, what are you doing? But even now, when we keep playing from the back, and when you make a mistake, he wants us to try it again and again and again, every time, over and over. And he gives us the trust that we can do it. So he doesn't just put on us the pressure that we can't make mistakes. He's always like, you can just keep doing it. And when you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. Just try it again and again. And I think this is really important as a player, that you feel the trust that you can do it and don't have the feeling that you can't make a mistake. That's it, isn't it? That's the Postecoglou way. That is the beauty of it, is he removes that fear factor from the players. And we saw that at Villa Park. You can't really get much of a better example than that, because such a high-pressure game, everything kind of riding on it, or a lot riding on it. And, there they were, Spurs, just playing around the press constantly. And yeah, there were a couple of times Romero, Basuma kind of knocked the ball towards Villa players accidentally, or a little too close to them. But they tried again. The next moment they knew that that's the way he wants them to play. He also spoke about what he'd learnt from the Postecoglou. He said, in football terms, in the build-up, there's so many options, as in with the ball. And when I came from Germany, of course, I hadn't played much professional football, but there are so many options in the build-up. And sometimes he comes with an option, and I'm like, yeah, it's true. I didn't even know this. Of course, it's possible, but I never thought about it like this. So I'd say that in football, the way of playing, I've learned the most from him. So in his young career, already just, 8 months of Ange, he's learned more than any other coach he's had. Which is, shows the coach, shows the man. And it was actually, probably the most interesting part for me was he spoke about the high line, Tottenham's high line, which we know, you'll see the critics saying, it's naive, it's going to get found out, you can't do that all the time. And he spoke about that, and he said kind of a lot of people misunderstand it because of the amount of attacks they see that are actually offside. It was quite a clever little thing. I kind of never really looked at it like this. He said, we know what to do. So for us, it's normal, the high line. Of course, people are shaking a bit, as in they're nervous or shaking their heads. I don't know which of the two he means there, because of the high line. Because we play with so much space at our back. But I think with Destiny, Pedro, myself and Kuti, we have the pace to recover it. It is playing with risk, but also you see most of the times the players run offside. We know it's offside because we know our strong line. Because of the linesmen, they don't put their flag up in the air. Everyone is shaking and thinking, they don't have control. But we know it's offside, so we know we have control of their attackers. That's why people think that maybe it's too high, because they keep going through, but in the end, it's offside. We train twice a week with only the defenders on this, and it's about some other things, of course. And the irony is, of course, it was from one of those offsides that he got both his injuries this season for Spurs. But I'm not going into that rant again. Thank you very much, by the way, for everyone that gave me some really good examples of various players that it has happened to and created bad injuries for them, and it did nothing at all. So, yeah, I'm not going to hold my breath that it's going to change anytime soon. Because it was an Australian interview, he was also asked about Mile Jedinak, which was quite interesting, and the work they do with Matt Wells on the training ground. He said, Mile most of the time is with us to defend us, with Wellesley, the other assistant trainer. Mile is a top guy. Of course, he had a great career, also the captain of Australia, but in our team, he's really important with the set pieces. Also, every day on the pitch, he's keeping us sharp and he keeps us ready every day. Off the pitch, he's a really nice guy, a top guy. It's interesting, Postecoglou said he was a scary guy. It's really good to work with him because even when we're training, he can bring us to the highest level. Even if we have to defend and he has to cross the balls in, even then we have to be at the highest level because Mile can still play. So he always reaches us in training with a high level. So we need to be on top every time. On and off the pitch, he helps us a lot. Never really thought about that. The fact that he's 39, he's still probably got a load of the quality he had as a Premier League player to ping the ball into these dangerous areas. And I think that's what people say about Mason as well. Obviously, there's certain things he can't do because of the hip injury, but in terms of his feet, he's still going to have that quality that he had as a player. Played for Spurs, played for Hull. Did he get England international? I think he certainly got called up. I'm trying to remember if he got one appearance. I think he maybe did get one appearance. I feel like he played under Roy Hodgson. So yeah, it's quality. Matt Wells is still young as well. And, it is a very young coaching group. Chris Davies, that little bit older as the assistant head coach. But it is quite a young group. Rob Birch as well, the goalkeeping coach too. So Veneman was also asked about Romero. And he said, for me, he's world class. He won the World Cup. But how you see him on the pitch, he's a leader. He wants to take the team and he's always 100%. Sometimes, of course, people see he's also a bit too aggressive. But he's a top-class player on the ball and without the ball with his defending. I can promise you that this guy is not scared of anyone and he keeps going every game. From the start, he was here helping me. He was there from day one helping me. He spoke with me and he helped me with the system they play because I wasn't here for pre-season. He helped me at the beginning and he's just a world-class player. So, yeah, it's a really nice interview. If you get a chance, watch it. It's on YouTube. West Ham have taken the lead. The reason I'm saying that is of no relevance to you because in terms of by the time this comes out, you'll be well aware of whatever the West Ham result is. But it does have a relevance to something we're going to talk about in a little bit, which we'll come to. But yeah, it's a good interview with Schwarzer and Van der Ven. It's about 20 minutes, and you can see there's a little bit of respect there. He's, I spoke to Mickey a couple of weeks back, and he's a good interview. He's a clever lad. He speaks well, and you can get quite a bit out of him as long as you kind of touch on the right areas, I guess. And he's got far more respect than he would have for me, but he's got far more respect for Mark Schwarzer, obviously being a very well-renowned player in the past as well. So it's worth it. Another thing that was very, very cool that came out this week, Dejan Kulusevski did a Players Tribune interview. There's a video element to it, but there's also this wonderful letter to the Spurs fans. I'm never entirely sure whether they write the letter themselves or whether it is taken from the video interview and turned into a letter, which it may well be. But whatever, regardless, it's lovely. It's a really nice piece. Talks about his dad and the sacrifices his dad went through and what a hard-working, tough guy he is. I think maybe from Macedonia originally, or his family were, but he was born in Sweden, his dad, but the background was. I think there's quite a Balkan influence, his mum as well. And he talks about his sister Sandra, who is she's tough. She's probably his toughest critic. I think he said that before in interviews, but he really goes into some detail. And yeah, no wonder he cannot ever rest on his laurels because Sandra is there. And this, I should differentiate. This is not Harry Redknapp's wife, Sandra. This is not the one who could have scored the goal that Darren Bent couldn't. This is a young Swedish lady called Sandra, Dejan Kulusevski's older sister, who, yes, has been this constant presence. It's done out of love, but very much very tough on him. Just essentially tells him he's rubbish when he's rubbish. Especially the first few games at Spurs when they didn't win anything, she was kind of ribbing him for that and making it very much his fault. But then also being very proud of him in the big moments. It's a lovely kind of piece, and so is the video. It's terrific. He talks about them. Talks about the first goal, first kind of big performance he had was when he started against Man City at the Etihad. And what he screamed at the Spurs fans after the game, I am him. It was all very, just because it was a weight lifted off his shoulders, because he had a couple of not so great introductory games, which we all remember, and people, as they do, rush to their judgments. And yeah, it's terrific. And he also talks about Ange. Here's what he said about Ange, and it's, again, really good stuff. I think a lot of our family atmosphere is down to Ange. Ange is brave. He makes you brave. He doesn't say a lot, but when he speaks, we can listen for hours. You can tell that he's been through a lot, and he often talks about what he learned from his father. He's different from any coach I've ever had. Everybody talks about tactics and winning, and that's good, but with Ange, it means a little bit more, because it's about you as a person. It's about you as a man and what you believe in. Ange says, I don't care if we lose, because everyone loses in life. If we lose, we're going to lose on our terms. Never go away from being you. And that's how I want to live my life. Okay, we're going to face the best, but we're going to do it our way. We're going to play like we did all our lives. Let me be clear, we want to win. We are fighting so hard to give you the trophies you deserve. This is to the Spurs fans, he's saying this. We've trained for you, we eat for you, we sleep for you. We know that this club changes lives. It's a huge deal to me when I see people wearing my shirt, because that means we connect on some level. And I still find it incredible that I can simply score a goal and send 60,000 people home happy. But we're also a young team with many new players. We're not going to win every game. And actually, Ange never speaks about trophies. He says, yes, we'll get there. But first of all, we have to become us. We have to find ourselves. It's just brilliant. Honestly, it's packed through with really interesting quotes like that. It's really good. It's a lovely piece. Take you a little while to read, but it's well worth it. It's a nice long read. Or you can watch it's like a 7-minute video, which kind of says elements of it. But I do feel like there's even more in the letter to Spurs fans as well. It talks about that Chelsea game as well, when they're obviously going down to 9 men and the way they played, and how important that was as a building block for the team in understanding their identity, because of the fans' reaction afterwards and how they applauded them even though they'd lost. It's the thing we don't realise, as fans, kind of the impact we can have as well. It kind of sometimes goes beyond simply cheering or supporting. It's something a little bit deeper than that, and it's very cool. Kind of cool. It just makes you feel a bit more of something. So yeah, back to the now. Obviously, Fulham at the weekend, and then Luton after that. I think I maybe explained it in the last video. We've got this kind of funny little bit now where we've always been thinking, the game in hand is against Chelsea. But actually, it's kind of not now because of this weekend. It's the FA Cup games. So, quarterfinals. You've got Liverpool, City and United all playing in those. Arsenal don't have a game this weekend because they were meant to play Chelsea, who have got Leicester City. And what that means is that Spurs and Villa get to play games this weekend, obviously. Fulham away for Spurs. And that kind of is that game in hand. So it now has a scenario, because Arsenal, Liverpool and City don't play until the Sunday after the international break. By the time Spurs have played this game on on Saturday, and then the Saturday after the international break against Luton at home, if they win both those games, Spurs would just be 5 points off the top. Villa technically would only be 3 points off the top if they were to win their next two games. They're at West Ham at the weekend. Obviously, Villa playing tonight against Ajax as well. And then I think they're home to Wolves, I think, the weekend after the international break. Villa could be 3 points off the top. So it just kind of closes that gap a little bit. And then Spurs will have only played one game more. And that weekend, Arsenal go to City. Liverpool host Brighton, which you'd imagine Liverpool would win. But you never know with the weird team that Brighton are this year. Kind of a real inconsistent side. But yeah, it's suddenly all gets a lot closer, and it kind of feeds into that narrative that Postecoglou was saying about, why are you just pigeonholing us into racing for that fourth spot? We'll see. We're not going to get too ahead of ourselves. It's more important Saturday first. But then we also have the fifth place, and this is what I was talking about with the West Ham scoreline. That unless you've been under a rock somewhere, you will be aware. You should be aware. Potentially, fifth place could get a Champions League qualification spot for next season. That is because next year's Champions League is the new revamped, bigger Champions League that needs more teams in it. It's definitely not all about the money. And 2 leagues in Europe will be handed an extra qualification spot based on their coefficients. So, how that works, it's kind of, apologies if I lose anyone here, but this is exactly how it works. So at least you know and what we can kind of expect. If, and again, Postecoglou is not relying on 5th place whatsoever, but we can, just in case, because we know Tottenham, and we know sometimes it always doesn't run as smoothly as we'd like. So, the way UEFA will decide who gets these 2 extra spots, it's 1 for each of these 2 leagues, is like a ranking system of coefficient points. It's based on the country's team's performances in the Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League. So as a start, just as their base scoring, for every win in the European competition this season, that country gets 2 points for this little mini league, and a draw gets you 1 point. Doesn't matter what competition, whether it's Champions League, Europa or Conference, you get 2 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. Then there are bonus points, and the bonus points are available. They're slightly different for each competition in this one. You get 4 bonus points if you reach the group stages of the Champions League, 5 points if you reach the round of 16 in the Champions League, and in the quarterfinal, semi-final and final, you get 1 bonus point for each of those that you reach. Still with me? In the Europa League, the group winners get 4 bonus points, the group runners-up get 2, and then there's 1 point for reaching the round of 16, quarterfinal, semi-final and final, each of those. Finally, Conference League, group winners get 2 bonus points, group runners-up 1, and then there's 1 point on offer for the semi-final and then for the final. So there's a lot less in the Conference League. So then what they do, at the end of the season, they'll look at all of that and how each country's teams have done in those competitions, and they'll total it all up, and then they'll divide that total by the number of clubs who started the season in the UEFA competitions. And then that's how they work out the coefficient average. So obviously with England at this moment in time, while I'm recording this, you've still got 6 clubs in action in Europe. Obviously you've lost 2 with Newcastle and Man United. So it will be 8, unless I'm missing someone. It will be averaged out across them. So that gives a chance, I guess, to smaller or historically smaller nations that will have less clubs in there. But if they do have a spectacular year, then their average is going to be a lot higher, obviously. So the current table, the coefficient ranking table, Italy and Germany are on top. Italy are top with 16.751. Germany are second with 15.928. England come in third with 15 points exactly. And then just beneath them, France in fourth with 14.416 and Spain are fifth with 14.187. So the reason I was talking about the West Ham scoreline is because that is quite a big game tonight, because it is an English team playing a German team. Obviously, Germany's sitting just above England. Essentially, people that are far cleverer than I have said that really, if West Ham go through, England suddenly become the favourites to get the extra spot ahead of Germany. It's that important, that game. So, yeah. So keep an eye on that game. I don't know if anyone's ever desperately wanted West Ham to win as a Spurs fan. I'd imagine you don't. But if Spurs were to need it, it could potentially be there. I mean, just looking at elsewhere, what you've got as potential helpers for Spurs, ironically, Arsenal. Obviously, scraped through in the penalty shootout, didn't they, against Porto? So they're through with Man City in the Champions League quarterfinals. Germany have also got 2 left in the Champions League. They've got Bayern and Borussia Dortmund. Italy have got no representatives in the Champions League now because Napoli and Inter both went out this week. In total, like I say at this moment, England have got 6 still involved in European competition. I'd imagine that goes down after tonight. Italy have got 4, Germany have got 5, France have 3, Spain have 5. So yeah, obviously tonight's games, which by the time you watch this, we already may know. Brighton have got to play Roma, 4-0 deficit. It's going to be incredibly difficult for them, obviously, to get anything back. You never know, but it's going to be difficult. Liverpool 5-1 up against Sparta. You'd imagine they'll be going through. They're playing at Anfield. As I say, West Ham, as we're recording this, currently 1-1. It was 1-0 to Freiburg, who they're playing. And Villa, of course, themselves they're playing in the Conference League tonight. They've got Ajax, and that's goalless. So, yeah, we kind of want the English teams to do well because it will effectively. I know Postecoglou hated this, but it is a bit of an insurance policy because of that big gap now. You know, if Spurs can this weekend win at Fulham, and Man U aren't playing in the Premier League because they're in the FA Cup, you know, Spurs could be. I mean, what's that? That'd be 9 points, wouldn't it? Let me just double check. Don't want to say things that are complete rubbish, apart from the usual rubbish I come out with. Yeah, that would be 9 points ahead of Man U. Same amount of games played, and with a 20 better goal difference as well. So, yeah, it kind of, if England could get this fifth one, it would really provide a terrific cushion in terms of the club getting Champions League. But, you know, I take Postecoglou's points on board entirely that one season in the Champions League is no good. It's got to be something that's an identity in the team, something that is built upon and it becomes a long-term thing rather than aiming to potentially get back into the Champions League. So, yeah. So hopefully I've explained that. And hopefully now, if that didn't make you fall asleep mid-video, you kind of understand what's in the offing for that. And it's a very early game, that West Ham game. 5:45. Normally that's kind of the away games, you get those. To have a home one, that's going to be must be tough for some people to get there from work. But there you go. Enough about West Ham. Back to Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. They have written a letter to Richard Masters, the Premier League Chief Executive, today, asking him to look into the whole controversy over Spurs' 6% season ticket increase, and even more so the senior concessions being removed for new applicants from after next season and reduced in discount for those who currently have it. Very quickly, this is what their letter says. Dear Mr. Masters, if like us the Premier League believes football is indeed nothing without its fans, we would urge you to contact the current owners of Tottenham Hotspur to remind them of this. Last week, Tottenham Hotspur announced that season tickets for 24-25 will increase by 6%. A step too far for many football supporters still dealing with a cost of living crisis. But to make matters worse, much worse in fact, they decided to completely remove new senior concession season tickets from 25-26. They also chose to eventually halve the discount for current senior season ticket holders who still qualify for the concession that remains. Note the word chose. They chose to do this. As one of the richest and most profitable clubs in the world, there was surely another way to raise a relatively small sum of between £3 to £4 million. We remain disappointed the club rejected our calls to freeze ticket prices and to improve the current concessions offered to senior citizens. The fact that a fan of 30, 40 or 50 years of loyal support will now never be able to buy a season ticket at a senior concession rate is disgraceful and unacceptable. This decision must be reversed. As the independent, democratically elected voice of Tottenham Hotspur supporters, we call on you to join us in asking the club to rethink these shocking proposals. We also believe Tottenham Hotspur should commit to comply with the Premier League rules that require it to offer senior concessions, Rule R8. We ask you to insist that they do. It is never too late to do the right thing. These changes must be stopped. So yeah, we shall see. We shall see what comes of that. We shall see, like I said in the last video, what happens now in terms of the fans. Obviously, you've got the Luton game after the international break as well, and how things work, how they go forward, and whether any of it makes any impact on the club. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. I'm trying to think of instances where the club have walked back on stuff. There haven't been too many, obviously Super League being the main one, but that was because everybody kind of was walking back on that. Yeah, I mean, the club have put their reasons forward for it, whether you agree with them or not. Again, as I said last week, it just always feels like it's left to Postecoglou to kind of make everyone smile again, because, you know, the club itself don't always do a terrific job of doing that. Yeah, but we'll see. Who knows? We'll see what the coming weeks and months bring on that regard. So a quick loan roundup. I did say I was going to do one of those. Jed Spence got a half for Genoa at the weekend. He was called on. They had a terrible first half in their Serie A match on Saturday. He almost helped them salvage a result against Monza. They were 2-0 down at the break, Genoa, He came on as part of a triple change. Genoa did get 2 goals back, but then chucked it all away. They conceded a 79th minute goal from Daniel Maldini. I watched the goal when it didn't have anything to do with Jed. Wasn't his fault. He did have a little bit of an impact. 1 key pass, 1 shot at goal, 1 dribble, put 2 crosses into the box, including one right at the death, which was headed at the goalkeeper. But yeah, he's getting there. He's 6 appearances now for Genoa, 308 minutes to his name, which is way more than he ever got at Spurs. So yeah, good. He's kind of rebuilding himself a little bit after the Leeds loan that obviously ended up being a bit of a disaster, and his move to Spurs, which has been a bit of a disaster as well, really. So good for him. That's what you want, kind of positive stuff. He just needs to kind of get back in the starting lineup, really. Tongi and Dembele, 12 minutes for Galatasaray as they won 6-2 at Rizespor at the weekend. Sorry, Friday night, it wasn't the weekend. He's come back from recently from a muscle injury. So he's back, like I say, only 12 minutes. Didn't get much time to make an impact. 656 minutes for him across 25 appearances. Every passing week, I think it becomes more of a struggle for Spurs to move him on this summer. He needs, Spurs need him to get into that team, really. They really do. One player that is doing very well, Japhet Tanganga, scored the winning goal, a late header from a corner against Birmingham for Millwall on Saturday, so they won 1-0. He only scored his first goal as a professional a couple of weeks back, and he's obviously just headed a winner. He's doing well. Neil Harris has kind of really rejuvenated them, and Japhet's been a big part of that. Neil Harris said on Saturday, Jaff's got great pedigree. He's got a great CV in terms of games at the top level and playing in Europe. Sometimes you have to be a different player here, and the reason I'm at the football club is to try and teach players what a Millwall player looks like. Whether that's a goalkeeper, a centre-half or a centre-forward. All I said to Jaff was just to make your decisions and I'll support you, but you can be as aggressive as you like. Ultimately, he's headed the ball a lot in both boxes, and to be a good Millwall centre-half, you have to do that. So yeah, really happy for Japhet Tanganga. Honestly, he's had such a mare with injuries in recent years. He hasn't really been able to develop. Needed a loan move a long time ago. Didn't work at Augsburg earlier this season, but now it is working, and then some at Millwall. He's really, really rebuilding himself. That's fantastic. Another player in the Championship, Joe Rodon. He's obviously doing very well as well. 2 clean sheets this week. 1-0 against Stoke in midweek. In the last week. And 2-0 at Sheffield Wednesday at the weekend. He's doing very well. Got a 9 in Leeds Live's player ratings for the game against Sheffield Wednesday. One half of possibly the best central defensive performance of the season for Leeds. Rodon was immense. Yeah, he's getting loads of praise. He's played 3,304 minutes for Leeds this season across 38 games. He's one of the Championship's top defenders. Spurs are going to have no issues selling him next summer. If anything, it's going to be completely opposite in terms of they might be able to have a little bit of a bidding war if enough clubs come in for him. So, that's fantastic. Great news for Joe Rodon. Even Perisic was on the bench again for Hajduk Split as they won 3-0 at Gorica. He did not come on, but he is part of things again, so that's a positive sign. And he's away with Croatia for this international break. So it'd be interesting to see whether they give him any minutes or not, or whether they still continue to be careful with him. Alejo Velis was an unused sub for Sevilla. On Monday night they went to Almeria. There a little bit of criticism for Sevilla and their transfer business in January, and Velis being used as an example of that. But he's a very talented young man. It's just I guess maybe the issue is whether he's ready to be starting games for them yet. We'll see. But he'll get his chance. He will. Troy Parrott has had a minor quad injury, so he missed Excelsior Rotterdam's 4-0 defeat at Alkmaar. So he missed that. He's expected to hopefully be back this weekend. Sergio Reguilon also out. He's got a hamstring injury, which meant he missed the Arsenal game. Eric Dyer has a very good week. Clean sheet, obviously, in the Champions League against Lazio last week in midweek. They won 3-0, and then he played 75 minutes as Bayern won 8-1 at home against Mainz. I think someone said he got an ovation from the Bayern fans as well, I think, for his performance. I think. 9 matches now he's played for Bayern. He wasn't in England squad, was he? I did wonder whether he'd sneak his way back in there because he's been quite good for Bayern. Oh, West Ham 2-0. 2-0. It's really weird that I'm watching a West Ham game with any real interest in whether they win or not, but it does impact that big time, the European stuff. So, yeah, very strange. Very strange feeling. Plymouth with Alfie Devine and Ashley Phillips. Alfie is still a sub at the moment, although he did come on and have a bit of an impact, really, against Blackburn at the weekend. What was their scores? I've got them here. They drew 1-1 at Blackburn. They lost 1-0 to Sheffield Wednesday in the week before. Ashley Phillips got booed by the Blackburn fans, which I think surprised a few people there at the game. Young man, obviously, heading off to kind of improve his football career. And yeah, he got booed by them, which is a strange one. What else we got? Yeah, Devine was involved in the equaliser. He had a shot which kind of led to Morgan Whittaker then scoring. Ashley Phillips, there was a couple of quotes from him, and he said, first of all, Argyle put trust in an 18-year-old centre-back coming in, so I owe everything to this club, opening up a pathway for me. For me, I want to see it become an established championship club. It doesn't deserve to get relegated, and I want to do everything I can to keep this club up, and hopefully we can do it sooner rather than later. I do believe we can do that. We've got 30 points to play for now. We back ourselves, and I'm sure we'll stay up. Matthew Craig, he was taken off at half-time as Doncaster lost 2-0 at Crewe. 2-0 win at Crewe. They'd had a couple of injuries in the first half, Doncaster, and I think it was to get the shape they took him off. Midweek, he played 88 minutes in 1-1 draw at Bradford. He was meant to play at Colchester on Tuesday with Doncaster, but that got postponed due to a waterlogged pitch. Same for Josh Keelian midweek. Barnet were meant to play at Eastleigh on Tuesday. That was called off at a waterlogged pitch. He did play. Barnet lost 2-0 to Bromley in the FA Trophy at the weekend, and in the week before that, they won 2-0 at Rochdale, against Rochdale at home. And I think I maybe mentioned in the last video, Guillermo Vicario and Rob Birch, goalkeeping coach, were there. So that was cool. On Vicario, I hope his head's okay. Haven't really heard anything more about it, so hopefully he's fine. I didn't see until today the little video of Sonny getting a little bit annoyed with him when he had his head injury, because I think, and this is a suggestion from the person that tweeted the video, that Sonny was saying essentially, don't take a risk, go off. If you know you've had a big bash to the head and they were trying to stop bleeding at the back, they put all that gunky stuff on it. And Vicario wasn't having any of it. Obviously, they were all smiles and hugs at the final whistle, so it was no kind of issue. But just an interesting little moment. I didn't see at the time at all, because it would have been the other end of the pitch to me from the press box at Villa Park. But it looked like, I think Sonny was thinking about him as a captain, thinking about him, and obviously with a bashed head. And hopefully he's okay going into this weekend's game. I wouldn't imagine there's any issue. There didn't seem to be any concussion problems there, and nothing in the protocol was invoked there. And he was in. They're always doing these little videos as they walk into training. He was in the one. Was it yesterday's one where they were doing Jenga as they all walked in, making them do it, and it's good fun. It became very tense towards the end. Vicario was quite early on. Essentially, those who were a bit later into training kind of got penalised because they had less stable structure to work with. I won't give it away by saying who is the one to send the Jenga tower tumbling, so you can watch it for yourself. But it's quite funny. It is quite funny. It's a good little video. But yeah, Vicario's in there, and he looks fine. Not that you can judge someone entirely by how they are. I think the camera's doing that thing, isn't it, where it moves slightly to focus on me. Apologies if that makes anyone feel ill or any iller than you normally would by just watching me. What else we got? Lucas Bergvall. Spurs helped his brother out, young Theo. He is young. He's 19. He is technically older than Lucas. So Theo Bergvall had a bit of an injury. He's a right back who plays for Djurgården as well. And Boss Anderson, you heard me speak about him in previous videos. Someone killed me for the pronunciation of it. I kind of say Djurgården pronouncing the J, and apparently you don't pronounce a J. It's something like Djurgården, but again, every time I get people kind of giving me advice on how to pronounce things, they all say it differently. So, yeah, that's why pretty much I will ask Lucas when he arrives. I'm sure he can tell me. Same with Udogi. I asked him how you pronounce his name. Same with Tongi Ondembele, which everyone told me was wrong, but that was the way that Tongi told me to say it. And I'd rather kind of do that rather than people assuming the way to do it. Yeah, you can tell I get a lot of people telling me about pronunciation. Quite rightly, because I do murder a lot of pronunciations. But yeah, so young Theo, it could be Theo, the way sometimes European people say their names. So he got a bit of an injury, and his club were not satisfied with the medical report they got back on. So Boss Anderson said, "It is true that Tottenham stepped in and offered us specialist help with Theo when we asked the question." And the Dürgarden physio Karl Barling added, "It is true Tottenham opened doors very quickly to a specialist clinic when we asked the question. We were not really satisfied with the opinions we received initially, and therefore we contacted Tottenham, who quickly offered help. We called, and Tottenham then made sure that we didn't have to wait." So that's cool. Obviously, it's Lucas's brother, so that's kind of a win there, isn't it? It's kind of keeping him sweet, but also it's part of this partnership that they're going to have, the two clubs, for years to come, sharing ideas and best practices and things like that, and young players going between the two clubs, and a friendly to be played, and so on. So, yeah, just to show that that's kind of in action and happening right now. Yeah, so that's pretty much all the kind of things I could touch upon. We'll dive into the Q&A, and let's see what we've got in here. That's an interesting one. It's only just come in the last half an hour or so. Did you see the BBC article about Waltham Forest Council having a statue of Harry Kane in storage and nowhere to put it? My question is, would you take it at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? Follow-up question, if you could only build one statue at the stadium, who would you pick out of Kane and Son? Oh, that is a tough one. From Gavin M2577. Well, it's really... But I'm going to cop out. I wouldn't have one statue. The club have been a bit funny about not really having statues. There is still a plan to have a Bill Nicholson one. I think eventually they want to have it between the two gates that are being brought out of storage and put near the ticket office. But yeah, would I take that one out of storage? Probably not, because it wasn't really meant to be for that. I would like to have statues of Kane and Son and Jimmy Greaves and Dave Mackay and Danny Blanchflower, Arthur Rowe, Bill Nicholson. I think definitely that's what I'd like to see. Glenn Hoddle. I'd like to see him as a legendary player. One of Ozzy and Ricky Summer as well. But I don't know. I guess, where do you have them? There's less space. The kind of the surrounding area, like, when you go to, let's say, the Emirates or London Stadium, I'm not using great examples, but they do have a lot of area around it to kind of the walk around, whereas with Spurs, perhaps less so because of the high road and the streets around. But, it would be cool to have some statues in there at some point. Obviously, if you're going to pick right now, you'd probably go for Son out of Son and Kane because he's a current player. And I think it would create less of an issue. But obviously, Kane being the all-time goal scorer does deserve his own statue as well. Who knows? You might find that Bayern get Arsenal in the Champions League, and we might all be wanting Harry to score a hat-trick or so. Although now, do we want English teams to keep going in the Champions League? Oh, I don't know. Oh, that would be very difficult to kind of want Arsenal to win, wouldn't it, for Spurs fans? Izzy Leanne asks, what do you think of the MCU these days? Do you still watch the movies or TV shows? Yeah, I watch them all. I do. Obviously, differing quality at the moment in some of them. I really enjoyed Loki season 2. Really enjoyed Echo as well. Thought that was excellent. But yeah, some of the films have been okay. Like the Marvels was it was a better experience than I was expecting by the way it was ripped apart in reviews. I actually thought it was okay, but I guess the issue is you want better than okay nowadays. What I did watch the other day, which was fantastic, was Poor Things. Not MCU, but obviously I was trying to watch a couple of the Oscar nominated films, and I really enjoyed that. It's good. Oh, I might have mentioned that in the last video actually, but it was good. What else we got? Oh, another Marvel one. Dave and Pam Beveridge, what are your thoughts on the fourth Captain America Brave New World movie scheduled to be released in summer 2025? Don't know yet. We'll see. Very excited. It's got Harrison Ford in it, though. As people will know, my favourite actor from when I was a child. So, yeah, intrigued to see. He's taken over from William Hurt, isn't it, as General Ross, who I think becomes Red Hulk. So, we'll see. But, yeah, we don't really know yet. Nick Clift 1320 asks, with the Brazilian international guys who aren't fluent in English, how does Ange manage to communicate with them so well? Are there translators in and around the club? There will be people that obviously will help communicate messages. You've got a lot of players now at the club who can kind of translate as well. There are also translators within the club. But what I would say with Ange, and he's spoken about this before, when he was at Yokohama, he really learnt to work without words as much, to use imagery and stuff like that, because obviously he was having to kind of do everything through a translator there. So, yeah, don't worry. Ange can get his message across regardless, really. What else we got? Die PYC1 asks, if this squad had a Royal Rumble, who do you think would come out on top? Probably Romero, but I'd imagine Dragishin's going to be he is a big lad. I still love that video of him and Richarlison when one of the first weeks after he joined, they were doing this band thing where they were doing that, holding the band in the gym, and they're pulling it from side to side, and Dragishin's strength just suddenly yanked it, and Richarlison, he just gives him this look as if to go, whoa, all right, Hulk. It's very funny. Not the Brazilian Hulk, to get confused there. But yeah, I would imagine it between Romero and Dragishin. A fully fit Fraser Forster, I think, would be quite the opponent. Spurs players rave about how funny he is, Fraser Forster. Apparently he's got a really funny, dry sense of humour. Bobby Alat asks, how did you and Guesty, a die-hard Everton fan, become great friends? Was it purely through the media world? Yeah, we just work together. We enjoy each other's company. He's good fun, is Guesty. But behind that very northern accent, and occasionally sounds like nothing interests him or excites him, is a very funny chap. And he's good fun. Greg King 6510 asks, I'm studying journalism and we get a lot of journalists in to speak with us. Their main message is always to do your time in terms of doing the gritty jobs and putting in the effort to build yourself up in the world of journalism. Where did you start and what kind of work did you have to do what did you have to put in to get where you are and become one of the most respected Spurs writers out there? It's very kind of you. I don't think I am, but it's very kind of you. I did exactly that. I put my time in. I've been a journalist now for 21 years. I worked in news for about 5 years, covering everything you possibly can in news, whether it be crime, whether it be old ladies' tea parties, charity events, court cases, murders, burglaries, fires, everything. Honestly, I covered it all. It gives you a really great grounding, I think, doing news first, and also helps you talk to people in real kind of big topics and difficult conversations and things like that. So when you're writing about football or talking to people about football, it's very much, you just keep it all in context, and it's not the end of the world because you've spoken with at an inquest with someone that wants to talk and give a tribute about maybe their child that's died, or you go to someone's house that's just burnt down and they want to kind of use that as a warning for other people not to do certain things, and you have to kind of try and do that while allowing them to tell their story and not be kind of violating their privacy in the first place, which obviously is not something that you really should do at all. So yeah, did that and then did local sport, worked my way up through that ladder, covering various non-league football and all kinds of sport, rugby, cricket, everything, tennis, boxing, martial arts, everything. And worked my way up there, eventually became the group sports editor of lots of different newspapers, then got the chance, I started as a local paper covering Spurs because the training ground fell within the patch, and it snowballed from there into me becoming a Spurs reporter. And it's what I've done now for, God, what are we up to? About 7 years it'll be this summer. Feels like a long time. So yeah, do your times right. Make sure you write a lot, because there is a lot of writing in journalism, and if you don't enjoy it, oh, look at that, the camera has moved and the little dot on the wall has come back into existence. If you don't love writing, journalism's not for you, because there's a lot of it. You've got to really want to do it. What else we got? I'll do one more, I think, and then I'll leave it there. He's always meant to be a little bit shorter, so I don't really want to get towards the hour mark. Scott Sanders 6284 says, you have made reference to Larry David a couple of times in the last few weeks. Have you been watching last season of Curb? Yes, I have. Yes, it's been good. There's been a couple of episodes that have been brilliant. There's a couple of episodes that are just funny. Still much better than a lot of kind of comedy stuff on telly. But yeah, there's been a few that have been superb. Which Spurs Academy product is pretty good right now? Well, it's got to be Jamie Donnelly right now. Which player would you like to share the carpool lane with, and which player would you least like to be stuck on a ski lift with? Carpool lane, I'd imagine James Maddison would be quite fun. Seems quite an amusing chap. Which player would I least like to be stuck on a ski lift with? They all seem like good guys. I'd maybe you wouldn't go for a player. Maybe you'd go for Ange purely because of his inability to hold small talk. If you were stuck on that ski lift for an hour or two, that could get pretty like he could be just scratching around. As a journalist, I'm sure I could come up with a million questions, but whether he would want to answer many, that's a whole other thing. Maybe I'd do that instead. Yeah, I think I'll answer this one because it actually is a funny little thing that I did at the weekend which surprised me. Paul MES 7667 says, how on earth can you do your job so well and be as passionate about the team as we are? I can't imagine that you jump for joy as each goal went in, yet you must want to. Do you know, it's really interesting. For the first time in a long time, when I can't remember if it was the first goal or the second goal, whether it was Maddison's goal or Brendan Johnson's goal, I did a little one of those. I did a little bit of a fist pump. I did, it surprised me. I kind of did it and almost laughed. I think it was because there was so much on the game. And I think it was probably the second goal, because that would have kind of solidified it. And, it's not like I whooped and hollered or anything, but I think I just recognised the significance of the moment, I think, or hoped the significance of the moment. And yeah, that's the first time. Normally I'm instantly like, I've got to write about this, and the head goes down and I'm typing away. But there was a little like, yes, kind of thing, and then writing. And it's interesting there's a question there, because that was the first time in a long time. And I guess that kind of shows a connection with the team as well and what Andy's doing. And I believe in what they're doing, whereas maybe in recent years I haven't quite had that connection on the emotional level as well. It is purely been professional, strictly business. Whereas maybe Andy's style of football is bringing out a little bit of the fan back out inside of me as well. It's not going to stop me being as objective as I possibly can be. You know what I'm like. I don't like to kind of dive in emotionally into things. I like to look at every possible side and then make my kind of mind up, which again comes from the news reporting from years ago, is looking at different sides to something, different angles to something, to ensure that I get the correct thing written down rather than just an emotional side from one person. But yeah, it did like I say, it took me back enough that I had a little chuckle about it, and I did there was instantly a thought after, oh crikey, I hope none of the local kind of Villa reporters looked at me, because I hate that. I've been at some games with certain clubs, and I have seen the journalist who covers those clubs whooping, hollering, jumping up and down. I've seen them running up and down the press box. And that is not what I want to be. That is absolutely not what I want to be. I don't mind having that connection and a little kind of under my breath, yes, kind of thing. But if I'm kind of running around celebrating, then I'm not in that moment doing my job. And that's, absolutely fine for other people to do. It's just not for me. So yeah, there you go. Right, on that note, it's probably a decent place to kind of call quits on this. Obviously, the Fulham game this weekend, Craven Cottage, one of my favourite stadiums. I love it. It's so old school, and you get that lovely walk to get there as well. In terms of the team, I would imagine unless any of these little niggles and problems become anything else, you're probably just looking at maybe Dragishin for Van der Ven. I don't think you'd change other elements. I don't think, even as good as Werner's goal was, I think Kulusevski being involved in 3 of the 4 goals, Brennan Johnson having an impact, scoring a goal, I don't think you kind of mess around with that. And in the midfield, likewise, I don't probably think you bring Bentancur in for Bissouma or Sarr. You probably let them crack on. Just to stick with a team that should have terrific momentum and belief that they can go anywhere and play their football. And long may that continue, because, like we say, a couple of wins and that table is going to suddenly look very interesting, especially with all the games to be played. Spurs and Villa are both going to have a big say on this title race, and who knows, if either of them can get some big wins against all the big boys, or a majority of them, and do well in the other games, then suddenly they're in a very strong position. Don't know what that means and what it will, take its form of. But let's see. I'm not going to get too carried away yet. It would be classic Spurs to go to Fulham and mess it up after doing so well at Villa Park. So they've got to go. It's a tough game. Fulham are a team that have beaten a few big sides this season. They've beaten Arsenal. They beat Man U. They've had a few other. Even the games against Liverpool have been very tight. The Carabao Cup semi-finals were very tight games as well. So they are going to be a proper challenge. But if Spurs play the way they played against Villa, especially the second half, they should be okay. But they've got to do exactly that and show that aggression, the pressing, the intensity. That's what we love. And that's what I've said on one of my gravestone, don't I? Which was a bit weird. Time to head off. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, look after yourselves. I shall catch you later. Goodbye.